Nicole, Conversations with Nicole. Let's talk about it. Tell me all about it. I'm here. I want to know what's on your mind. Ooh, the world needs to hear from you, and I'm so glad to have a conversation to reach the nation. And it's all about you. We'll help each other to discover innovative ways to positively change the world. Let's talk about, let's talk about, yeah. Let's talk about Conversations with Nicole.
Greetings. Welcome to Conversations with Nicole. I am Nicole Everett, your host. And Conversations with Nicole is a talk show based in Tallahassee, Florida, focused on connecting the community through conversations. And today is what I call Mindset Monday. Mindset Monday is an opportunity for you, me, and my guests to have an interactive conversation. And today we are talking about racial identity in the Black community. Racial identity in the Black community. But before I introduce my lovely guests, I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments what city and state you are tuning in from, and we'll give you a shout out. We are live on Conversations with Nicole Facebook, YouTube channel, and on Greater Works Network on Roku TV. So if you have a Roku TV player or stick, you can access us by going to Greater Works Network and hitting the live stream button. And we're right there. So, again, this is interactive. We want to hear from you. We would love to hear your comments and your questions. This is a safe space. And so we want to engage with one another. So I see you, Miss Lisa Love, right here in Tallahassee. Thank you so much for tuning in. Good evening. Good evening. Tag your friends, your family members, and let them know they need to be here tonight because we have a great conversation for you about racial identity. Hey there, Miss Tracy Adams Golay, joining from Orange Beach, Alabama. Thank you for tuning in. So, we are talking mental health and wellness in Black and Brown communities. We've been doing that since November for those of you who are new to the platform. And it's an opportunity for folks to engage with, excuse me, clinicians and, just see what they have to say about various sundry topics. Um, that ideally I want folks to connect with clinicians and utilize them for counseling services. And so that's the ultimate for me when somebody does that. And that has happened a time or two. So I encourage folks to get their checkup from the neck up, is what I call it. Just like we have our annual physicals, we should be getting mental checkups and check-ins on a regular basis, and not wait until there's a crisis, but get with the counselor, get with the therapist on a regular, especially if you have some things that you want to work through. So at any rate, as the rest of you all are chiming in and logging on. Hey there, Susan. Thank you for tuning in Hampton. And Mr. Ozzy Daniel, who is also a clinician in Virginia Beach area. Thank you for being here, Dr. Oz. We appreciate you. All right, so rest of you all tune on in, and I am going to go ahead and read some of my guest bio. Miss Jasmin Brooks, she's completed a dual undergraduate degree and achieved a BA in both psychology and sociology from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. She currently is a clinical psychology PhD candidate at the University of Houston and specializes in leading interdisciplinary research and culturally responsive treatment approaches that address suicide and mental health disparities within Black communities. Over the course of her career, she aims to develop and implement culturally mindful clinical interventions that reduce racism related stress and promotes psychological well-being within Black communities. So help me welcome Miss Jasmine Brooks. Yay!
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Nicole. It's a pleasure to be here.
My pleasure, my pleasure. So y'all know how this connection works with clinicians. So my buddy Brandon Johnson connected me with Jasmine Brooks, and Brandon has been on. He is with the Black Mental Wellness Lounge up in Baltimore, and so he said you gotta chat with Jasmine, and she has so graciously accepted the invitation, and we're so excited and delighted to have you here with us tonight, Jasmine.
Thank you. And Brandon, yes, is a wonderful friend and colleague. Thank you so much.
Indeed. So
Mhm.
tell us, who is Jasmine Brooks? Not what you do, but who is Jasmine?
Yes. Who is Jasmine? I love that question, right? So I always start out with Jasmine is a big sister, oldest daughter, lover of family, travel, friends, and just life. I identify as a Black woman. I am now newly engaged. And yes, I do want to dedicate a lot of my career to mental health as well, because I feel like, which we'll talk about a little bit today, that my story growing up was full of a lot of trying to figure out the answer to that question and feeling as if other people were trying to define that for me, whether it was based on my race, based on my gender, based on activities that I like to do. And so I feel like it was a journey to kind of answer that, to learn the answer to who is Jasmine. But I know those are some of my core traits there, just someone who loves to, again, travel, have fun, and spend time with loved ones and watch sports on the weekend.
Love it.
So, mhm.
Nice. Now, over at the University of Houston, you work with Dr. Rita Walker, correct?
That is correct. She is my advisor. Yes.
Nice, nice. So she was on the show in April, and we talked about her book, uh, the
The
Unap-
other, yeah. Mhm.
yeah, the Unapologetic Guide, and so just dynamic speaker, and
Mhm.
a lot of great insight, in terms of Black mental health. So, I'm glad that we are comfortable talking about this, especially with all of what's gone on in the past 2 years. And so, um, I know you and I have talked about um, identity, and I want to dive, and we'll get into this in just a little bit, but I want to connect the dots between identity and death by suicide, and show how you know that can definitely um, take a turn in terms of if we aren't real clear on our identity, or if there's some rejection that goes along with that, then some people can take a shift for the worse. But we'll get there in just a little bit. But before we do, I have a little disclaimer that I read, because I have clinicians on. I don't want people to mistake what we're doing here as therapy, although it's as good. It feels like it might be, but we do want folks to go ahead and connect with the clinicians. So let me pull out my quick disclaimer here. Hold on one moment. While I am pulling this up, just briefly, if you will, Jasmine, share kind of why you got involved in psychology.
Mhm. Absolutely. So, my story growing up was a lot of what led me to psychology. I grew up in this really small Black town in South Carolina, Orangeburg, if anyone is familiar with it, where we kind of biked to everyone's houses, where everyone looked the same, talked the same class, same everything, right? So it was a really small, again, Black town. You'd see your teachers at the post office, right? And
Mhm.
there was one or two schools in the whole town. The movie theaters was 45 minutes away. So that's where I grew up and spent most of my childhood. And then I switched to Atlanta, Georgia, and was thrown into private schools, and being now one of the only Black people around me. And a lot of identity pieces happened where I
Mhm.
just was not sure anymore who to be or who I was. It was now I was getting asked if I was adopted because my mom is very, very fair skinned. And I was now getting asked, why is my hair so poofy and curly? Why do you look like this? Where anytime Black history would come up, everyone starts staring at you in the room, right? And so this is middle school, and so it's a very hard time of trying to figure out who you are at that point.
Mhm.
And I hadn't experienced that before, and so I remember going to family members trying to understand what was happening. Mommy, why does everyone look like you? No one looks like me and daddy and my sisters, right? I remember those conversations, and I remember it's hard to find a response. I remember having days where I felt really down and not understanding why. And it seemed like no one around me understood either and really talked about it. And it was the same pick ourselves up. We got bigger things to worry about than being sad about being the only Black kid, right?
Mhm.
There's too many things going on. There's too many things with your sisters, with working two jobs. There's too much going on.
Right.
And as I got older and realized that psychology in college was a career, realized that there are other people that go through this internalized racism struggle as well, that go through these questions of where does my identity fit in being Black when you're kind of stuck between these different worlds, it feels
Mhm.
like. And so with that, I found Black psychology in college through my mentors. And I realized that this isn't just my story, that this is so many individuals' stories when it
Yeah.
comes to being Black in America.
Mhm.
And you look at the events that have happened in the past few years, you look at the beginnings of the Black Lives Matter movement and what has occurred in the last decade, right? What has occurred throughout generations in this entire country and the world that again put so much on being Black. And so that was what led me to wanting to unpack this more, realizing that there aren't any of us in mental health, realizing that there's a stigma that was in my family, that's in a lot of other families of color, that we don't go to mental health services. We keep this in the family. We that is weakness. That
Mhm.
is weakness. And so I wanted to be a part of breaking that. I wanted to be a part of making treatment more culturally mindful, be another face, one of the 1% Black clinicians that exist in this country, right? To hopefully get more of us to seek help and to realize that it's okay to not be okay. And so that's kind of my little spiel for how I got here.
No, I love it. I love it. And I think, yes, your story is very, I think it resonates with a number of people. Definitely can relate to, some of the things that you talked about. So I did find my disclaimer, which is that all topics past, present, and future on Conversations with Nicole are for informational purposes only. They are not to be used as a diagnosis for treatment or an answer to any personal issues related to the topic being discussed before, during, or after the program. So there, I said it. Let me pause. I see my sister Shayla is on, and today is her anniversary, her wedding anniversary. So happy anniversary, Miss Shay. She's down in South Florida. All right. So you laid a really good foundation for our topic. So racial identity in the Black community. So I want to just pause real quick and ask our viewers, what do you all identify as? Give me like three things that you, or three, um, yeah, three categories. Three, what do you identify as? Black, African American. I know some people are set on not being called African American. They want to be called Black. And then I have others I know that feel strongly about being called African American, not Black. I was thinking about with coming up with this topic. We've been Negro, we've been colored, we've been, all of these things, right? But what matters is what do you identify as, right? And what that means to you. When I think about being Black, is that just our pigment, or is that a mindset, or is that a culture? And if we're talking about culture, we're talking about, everything, right? Where we live and what we eat and the music that we listen to, the books that we read, you know, how we worship, um, all of that. All right. So, just again, conversations. This is again a safe space. So, hopefully, you all will chime in. I see a few of them. All right. Sabaki said Jamaican. Okay. TC Lee said Southern Black woman. Okay. And hey there, Miss Princess. All right, AJ Ryder. I just say black. Saying I'm half Trinidadian and half Jersey is too many. Too is way too many words. I'm just black. Okay, AJ, I love that. All right. My sister said African American, Bahamian American, Miamian. Okay. A human being that is Crucian, Black and American. Okay, Ozzy. Cape Verdean. All right. I'm not sure what that is, Trisha, but you maybe expound a little more. Okay. Susan said Guyanan, American, Guy American. All right. Short, Scott Shorter, no identity, just being. Okay. All right. Just being present. Love it. I am a human being. My color doesn't define me, it's my personality and heart. Okay. Like that too. But preference, melanin, soul. So let me ask you about that. Let me ask you about this, Jasmine. So I have at different points in my life kind of struggled with the thought of why does color matter, right? Can I just be me and not even focus on the color of my skin? But being in America, we're often reminded,
Hmm.
right, of the color of
Hmm.
our
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the reason that color has the power it does is because of the socialization of the history of our country, of this world,
skin.
right? From I don't know the beginnings of time, right? But the color, darker skin was equated with just such negative connotations, whether it was the basis to be sold as property, whether it was the basis to be ripped away from your families, your homeland, and shipped, like, again, property because you were darker skinned. From the beginning, it's just been equated with such inferiority. And so because of that, generations, whether it's majority groups, whether it's Black groups as well, that's the power that color had. And we've been breaking that, right? Slavery has ended, right? These more overt forms of racism have decreased, but it still lingers. That culture and socialization still lingers.
Mhm.
And that's, in my opinion, why, right? Is we don't want it to. I don't think we do at all, right? But because of, in my opinion, the socialization that has occurred with the color of people's skin in particular, we are always on a daily reminded that being Black is what everyone sees and associates with a major component of our identity. Even if we want to be like, believe it was Scott Shorter, right? That just being, it's like we don't even have that choice because people try to do it for us and tell us that there's different shades. That means you're this, that means you're that,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. And not only that, I think, also the thoughts of what that means, right? So now I can identify you as black, and so as a result, you are this, right?
Hmm.
When I was putting the story, putting the flyer in the story, I found this song about black people, and it was talking about us eating chicken and watermelon, and being
Hmm.
athletic, and it was all of these kind of stereotypical things, and so that lends itself to this thought that we can't be anything else, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's a
Absolutely.
problem. That's a problem.
Yeah, because listen to what you just listed, right? Exactly. It's like that means that if we don't want to eat chicken, if we, if we don't listen to certain music, if we dress proper, if we talk proper, if we want to go to school, if we want to, it's associated with being white. And
Mm,
it means that we're not Black.
right.
And again, oftentimes, who are the people saying that? It's
Mm,
us. And so how are we hoping to break this when we're also perpetuating that these things are white, that achieving goals, that again, going to school and talking proper and dressing proper and not wanting to eat fried chicken and not wanting to just listen to rap music, why does that mean that you're not Black? Why
mm,
does that mean if you do it, you are? Because as everyone has said here, no one's listed any of those things, right? No one's listed, I like eating fried chicken, even if we do, right? Because it's like,
mhm.
that's not what's at the forefront. And so, why is that what we're putting on each other, what society continues to put on us, that we have to be put in this box?
Yes. Yes. Agreed. Agreed. So we're trying to break out of this box, right? We're breaking out of the box.
Hmm.
Okay. We're breaking out of the box.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, because the box, I think, is what the problem is. I think that's a huge part of what the problem is.
Hmm.
You know, the the thoughts around what it means to be Black, and so when folks, engage with us already, they are coming with these preconceived notions about who we are without even having a conversation with us.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah. And assuming just not great things oftentimes, right? And just it's I'm reading the comments as well. So
Hmm.
that someone just said that attending the predominantly white school
Hmm.
and being involved in a Black church. Yeah, exactly. Like I actually really want to highlight that because that is one of the things that I touched to, of like being the Black girl stuck between two worlds, where yeah, when I moved to Atlanta, I attended predominantly white schools. I was the only one in the classroom. I remember the grade above me hit a record for school history of 9 non-white students in a grade. Average grade was 150. 9 non-white. And so that was, yeah, one of my environments. And then the other environment was my neighborhood, my church,
Hmm.
and it was like I'd put on these clothes. For anyone that's seen The Hate You Give, right? It's like put on these clothes, you go to school, you come back, and it's like it feels like it's two completely different people. And it's like, how am I both? Which one am I? I
Hmm.
like I like going to school.
Hmm.
I like talking about, sometimes even listening to, back in the day, country music, right? But then I come home and I also like lounging on the chairs, sitting on people's porches, talking, laughing, right? So it's like, which one?
Right.
And why do I feel like I have to hide the other part when I'm around the other one, right? It's like,
Mhm.
why do I feel like I can't talk about the fact that my parents are first generation doctors around my Black friends because I'm going to get judged there or assume that it got handed to me? Why do I feel like I can't talk about where I come from around the white kids because I'm not good enough?
Mhm. Yeah.
Right? It's like, why? And that to me is largely again due to the stereotypes and just this box that we put ourselves in.
Mhm. So Dr. Asha
Hmm.
said Shania Twain is a jam, though.
Hmm.
Um, Deb Savaki, she
Yes.
said, I didn't know that my skin color was considered Black until I came to America, and she's Jamaican.
I
So,
didn't know my skin color was Black until I moved to Atlanta, Georgia. So
mm,
I can relate to that. Until you're in an environment where you realize that
mm, mm,
that's how people are judging you,
yes.
it's nothing. It's the same as any other part of you. It's
Mm,
the same weight as the fact you like certain foods or the fact you like to play sports. But
mm,
it's only when we go to these spaces that try to magnify that and make that all of us, make that
mm.
everything that we are, that we
Indeed.
realize it.
Trisha said, born in Massachusetts County. When I moved here, I had hair down my back. I struggled with where to fit in. I was too bright skinned to be Black and too fair skinned to be white. First and only fight I got into was defending myself because I wasn't Black enough. Wow.
Mhm. Yeah.
Wow. So we gotta stop that, right?
Yeah. No, and my sister, we actually started a podcast called We Had the Talk, and we had season one was on being Black in America. We did one episode on not being Black enough, one
Yeah.
episode on growing up Black and white spaces,
Mm.
because both right there are what you're touching on, right? That's like
Mhm.
just two very prevalent stressors and just very hard things to go through, but just such different experiences,
Yeah.
right? Not being Black enough, but then being the only one, and then you are both. Where
Mhm.
do you go? What do you do?
Yeah.
That's that hopelessness feeling we talk about that leads people to have that desire come up
Mhm.
of do I have another option?
Yeah. Yeah. So, and so what Jasmine is talking about, this other option is that it would be better if I'm not here, or if it would be better, I wouldn't be a burden on my family, you know. And so that's where this can go, and we want to try to prevent it from going there.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah,
so
and if
not
we're not secure, oh, sorry.
Yeah, the
Hmm.
comparisons, the beauty standards, all of that are huge contributing factors to those types of ideations.
Hmm. Yeah, and if we're not secure in it, right? If we're letting these other people, whether it's the not being Black enough space, whether it's the you're too different, you're too dark still here, right? Whether it's both of those, if we're internalizing them and believing that they're true and we're not strong in what are the positives of being Black, exactly. That's when it can lead to, right? That what's the point? Am I a burden? When I come in these spaces, I don't feel comfortable. I feel like, again, skin color is something I can't control. So we think about again the ultimate hopelessness feeling
Hmm.
is feeling like you have nowhere to go with something that's out of your control,
Yeah,
right? And so what do? You ask for help, but now so many of us don't
yeah,
ask for help.
yeah.
So then really, what do we do?
I don't know. So Princess said, I did see color growing up with other children, not black. We never made each other feel odd because we didn't know about being judgmental till someone taught us this mess. So I
Mhm,
definitely think that, children are picking up on things that are being said in the household, or in different places and spaces. um Scott Shorter said, being black enough and being black both are detrimental to the black community. Absolutely. And Dr. Asha, feeling like you don't belong or that you have to act like others, be inauthentic in order to belong, which is taxing. Yes.
code switching,
Code switch.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Code switching is definitely can be taxing,
Yes.
right? Because then it's like I got to alter my voice, I got to alter this, I got to do this,
Mm-hmm. The
and why?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we definitely need to focus more on, folks being their authentic selves and encouraging that, especially with our children. I
Mhm.
think that in some regards it's a little bit better than maybe it was, but in other regards not so much. And I think part of it is social media and the comparisons that go on there, and some of the bullying that goes on there, cyberbullying that takes place.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you touch on the very important role of parents when it comes to especially Black youth, right? And
Yeah.
actually, another area of my work really looks at racial socialization, which you also started to discuss, right? Is like, how do we talk about being Black with our children? Do we
Yeah.
talk about it at all? Do we talk about how you're going to experience that sometimes, where you might feel the pressure to change based on what space you're in because of your race,
Hmm.
right? How do we talk about that? Do we only talk about the barriers? Do we only let our children see this mass trauma on the media, on TV of Black people getting murdered by policemen? Do we only talk about the barriers that we're going to face, that you have to work twice as hard to get half as far? All of those are arguably important, but are we balancing that with the beauty?
Mm.
Are we balancing that with the community aspect, the fact that, again, how strong we are and resilient we are, and the power and the beauty, again, in your curly hair, in your right. Do we talk about that too? Or are we just talking about these barriers?
Good question. Good question. I'm not sure. I'm curious. I would love to hear from the audience whether or not they are having these types of conversations with their children or the young ones in their lives. Scott Shorter wants to know, how do we eradicate this? My opinion is that we must form alliances with one another and have those uncomfortable discussions as to why colorism even existed after hundreds of years, which is rooted from slavery. So yeah, I think some of it is a lack of knowledge in some regards. You know,
Hmm.
not
Yeah,
kind of not knowing where it began, um,
yeah,
and why it
yeah.
continues to be perpetuated.
And I think the issue is that what we're talking about right now is two completely different battles. How do we essentially eradicate racism? And then
Hmm.
how do we eradicate Black people judging each other on
Hmm.
these stereotypes that racism created?
Right.
Right? It's
Right. Right.
like they're completely different battles, but they're two, such big ones. It's like, how
Hmm.
do we get each other to stop putting ourselves into these boxes? And then how do we essentially, again, stop systemic racism? And those are things that can seem, again, impossible, right?
Yeah.
It can seem like we will never achieve that. But I think a really good point that was made there, right? Of like forming an alliance,
Hmm.
coming together, creating safe spaces, healing circles, places to talk about what we're doing right now, right?
Hmm.
Places to show people that they're not alone, places to provide resources. I think those are definitely where we can start with, again, maybe not ending systemic racism, but at least providing a space to show people that you're not alone and
Yeah.
that we can get out of it together and that there is a group of people that's not judging you based on this. And this is where you can come and be you.
The Ozzy said, I never experienced bigotry until I came here to America, but I still get treated differently because I have a Caribbean accent. Yet the only island most Americans knew back in the day was just the island of Jamaica. Then I had to give a geography lecture. Yet in Italy, I was more embraced. Character is the only thing that should matter. Agree.
Yes,
Agree.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So my sister says
Hmm.
she's definitely trying to figure out how to explain about being black with my sons. And so she has a 3-year old and a 4-year old.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, and you look at the fact that 7 years old, you can have a toy gun on the side of the street,
yeah,
right?
yeah, 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 yeah,
Hmm.
for sure.
Yep. And
Um,
I'm looking at I
which
believe
one?
Prin Michelle's comment right
Oh
there. I
yes,
can see
Prince.
why.
She said
Hmm.
I can see why I get stressed because I'm consistently in this battle to teach my kids about being black. And I think sick of it because what is black if you are still trapped in a box of being someone's puppet? Hmm.
I really like this comment because I think this really highlights a lot of what we've been saying tonight, right? That one, it can be very frustrating as a parent, and we need to also have a space where we as parents can come together and talk about how hard it is to do these things. So I think
Mm,
it's very good that you're being open about that, right? Because that is another space that we need to talk about because it's very difficult to ask, how do I talk to my 3 and 4-year-old son in a couple years about what it means to be black?
yeah.
Right? Those are very difficult things that you're not taught in a class. You're not taught in a book. You're not taught in parenting 101, right?
Mhm.
This is something that you are essentially thrown to the wolves to figure out yourself and hope you come out well on the other side, right? So one, we need to have that community to talk about that. Two, it's important to remember that if you do convey that it's this box that they're always going to be trapped in, that's what they're going to receive. So as much as it may be true, we got to show that there's a way out. We got to show that that yes, other people are going to judge you and we may not have control over that, but how do we build it so that you are confident to know that this is not you? That what people say about you doesn't mean you have to change, doesn't mean that you are less than. We may have to play the game a little bit to get ahead, but once we're ahead, you're going to write your own story and you do have the power to write your own story, right? Those kind of messages I do think is really important to share so that our kids have hope, because without hope, what do we have?
Very well said, Jasmine. Because again, one of the things that I was thinking about, especially as it relates to our Black boys and men, is probably a sense of hopelessness. If you see um, people who look like you on the news constantly that are, you know, there for some criminal activity or being murdered, basically. I'm sure it can seem hopeless. Like, I'm not going to live beyond a certain time, or, they're after me, or that sort of thing. And so
Mhm.
I think it's very important that we instill hope and, teach our children how they should conduct themselves in order to make it home, in order
Mhm.
to hopefully, live to see another day.
I think about all the Black kids that I see as clients in therapy too, right? And I actually started working. I've worked in the past at juvenile detention centers. I've worked at hospitals. I've worked at, places, because again, so often we don't make it to private practice, right? Whether it's because of access, whether it's because of cost, whether it's because of stigma. And you see that. You see kids at 13 saying that I don't have a choice. I'm just going to end up like my brother who died at 18 because he was in gangs. I'm just going to end up selling drugs like my dad and going to jail. I'm just going to end up like my uncle. Everybody at 13, that's what they've put their life to. That without a doubt, that's my story, because
Mm,
I don't have a choice. I don't have a way out. I need to make money for my family at beginning at 14 because we don't have enough.
right.
And it's that's where again that need to show that there's another side to it, that there is another way, that that power in asking your children, who are you? Right?
Mm.
I don't think I was asked that question until a college essay, right?
Mm.
That really challenging your children to ask who they are and to try to define it, because I guarantee that so many haven't thought about it because everyone does it for them. So they
Mm.
don't have to ask, what do I actually like to do, mommy? What do I actually want to do? If I had this money, if I had this, what would I do? Because we don't even think that way, right? So often we don't. And so I think really even opening up the room for that if no one put us into this box, what would we be doing?
Very good question. I actually am thinking about that for our viewers, because we probably weren't asked, many of us, who are we, right? And really
Mhm.
gave any thought to that. So
Mhm.
I'm gonna ask y'all, who are you? Who are you? We did a identity check. Just so I asked you all to list three things that you could identify, or characteristics that you could identify yourself as, and you all played along. So I appreciate that. But who are you? Let us know,
Yeah.
and just a sentence. Let us know, who are you. I'm gonna put
Mhm.
Monica's comment up. She said, "We need to check our family and friends who continue to perpetuate those stereotypes. Silence makes an individual complicit in this bad behavior."
Mhm.
Absolutely agree.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Princess says, "Speak the hope to empower." And Dr. Lee said, "Internalized racism plus the necessity of defending ourselves from others who actually define and weaponize blackness against us makes the daily burden of race very difficult to escape."
Mhm.
I think we really felt that after the murder of George Floyd. I really do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I really do.
Mhm. Who again, you can be. I mean, I think about all of the ones that really got highly publicized, whether it's Breonna Taylor being asleep in her
Mhm.
bed,
Yeah.
whether it's Ahmaud going on a run in
Mhm.
the neighborhood, whether it's George Floyd standing outside. You can be doing nothing except living your life, and boom.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so
Absolutely.
it's all, it's the perception of what this blackness is,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm. Yep.
And so now others are making their perceptions our reality.
Absolutely.
And now,
Mhm.
I'm a stranger in the neighborhood and I have a hoodie on and I got a bag of Skittles and an Arizona iced
Mhm.
tea. And now I'm a
Mhm.
target.
Absolutely. Now I'm a target because the hoodie is black and I'm black. What?
Right.
Even though I got Skittles and I just want to get home to my parents at 14 years old?
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so folks are chiming in. Scott Shorter said, I'm an extension of Source. All right. Deb said, I am one of God's highest form of creation, fashion, and love. Okay.
Mhm.
Love it. Let's see. Prince says, I am a daughter of God who has no fear to change because I
Mhm.
know my purpose is greater. Love it. All right. I have recognized my inner power and realized I play a part in creating my reality. Love that too. Nice.
Mhm.
AJ, we are all collectively traumatized and exhausted. Yes.
Mhm.
Agreed, agreed, agreed. All right. Thank y'all for commenting and sharing that with us. So, and not that we're going to unpack all of this right here, right now, but I think it's just again a worthy conversation for those. So, for those of you who may be just joining us, I am talking with Miss Jasmin Brooks. She is a PhD candidate currently, a clinical psychology PhD candidate at the University of Houston, and we are talking all things racial identity in the Black community. So AJ said, D.L. Hughley always says the most dangerous place in America is inside of white
Oh,
folks' imaginations. Ooh.
oh, that is deep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That is deep. Absolutely.
So you think about all the Karens in the world
Mm.
and petty patties and things of that nature that's going to, use the police department as a customer service, you know,
Mhm.
for the misbehaving uh, Black person.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
And it's just, but even I think about, yeah, like with statements like that, right? Where it's like, what would that be? And just there's such a range too, like, because that is another part of racial socialization is do we promote mistrust of all white people,
Hmm.
right? Because that statement reminds me of something that I used to grow up really feeling because I grew up around the type of white people that were from the South and were families all were members of people who at the time, if Trump was an option, would have voted for Trump. I grew up with that. And so I did start to equate that all white people had that. And I just had to avoid it completely. And honestly, I've started to come around to from college, from meeting from one of my closest friends now being white and that's not all true sometimes, right? We got to show that it's not all white people against us, right? Because then again, that can lead to that hopeless feeling because when you look around, the likelihood that you see a lot of white people is very, very high, right? And so if we just associate all white people as bad, what is that going to do too? And how is that going to make us break this?
No, great point. Great point. So definitely, because it's almost as if we are being we're reversing it, right? So the treatment that we are receiving, we are now
Mhm,
giving.
mhm. We're promoting sometimes. And
Mhm.
again, it's not like we're not arguably justified, correct?
Mhm. Mhm.
Because of the legacy of what white people have done in the historical days to Black people, correct? But that is assuming that there's no room for change.
Yeah.
That people today, that all white people today are the same as those people that ripped our ancestors from the homelands,
Mhm.
right? And that's not leaving room for our kids and our people to believe that there are different people out there and that there are allies out there and that
There are.
arguably again if we want to create change we need allies. We don't need to rebuke and shun away allies.
Mhm.
We need to learn how to be open to welcoming them and learn how to differentiate between people trying to check a box for D&I in their workspace and people actually trying to create change, right? So
Mhm.
that's again that open-mindedness that I think I've started to realize in some of my work and just personal and professional life as well.
Indeed. So we've talked a little bit about maybe some solutions in terms of eradicating it. We talked about, um, forming alliances, maybe developing some healing circles. Any other suggestions that you might have or thoughts about that?
I think that again, that's kind of where it starts, in my opinion, of
Mhm.
when we think of what's in our control, right? What's in our control is talking about mental health with our families. It
Mhm.
is doing check-ins, even if you don't think it's needed, right? Because we look at now some of these, like whether it's Chesley Christ, right, or these more high, well-off people that we arguably would think, oh, they're never struggling, they're never right. So check in on your strong friend, right? Check in on that friend that maybe you haven't talked to in a while, that, you just assumed life got busy for them, right? Check in,
Mhm.
create those healing circles, and maybe engage again in asking for help yourself, right? It's like let's at least start with ourself of, like you said in the very beginning, of how we get our physicals, how we go to the dentist for our cleanings, how we
Mhm.
go check our blood pressure. Let's
Yeah.
just do a mental health check-in too,
Mm.
right? Because look at what we've been through. Look at what we go through every day of our lives. Look at all the stuff we've talked about how we're molding ourselves and being this chameleon for all these different spaces. Let's just go in a room and let it all out,
Yeah.
right? So that's kind of where I see us starting, is asking for ourselves, asking for help ourselves, creating these safe spaces wherever we can, and checking in with our loved ones when we
Mhm.
can.
What do you say? And I will put Prince's is coming up in a minute, but how do you, I guess, maybe fight against not getting lost in maybe other folks' thoughts about who you are and should be?
Mhm. I think that's a very hard question, right? It's easy to say don't, right? That'd be easy to say, right? Is just believe in yourself, believe that you're amazing, right? But that's the hard thing, is that so often we don't. We can't, because we're getting it from every direction.
Yeah.
And so again, when you're in that spot where I think it's very hard to believe that you're good and that you're great and you have these things, one thing that's really easy that I like to promote is just a gratitude log. You can do it on your notes in your phone. You can do it on a journal, right? But every day, try to think of two or three things that you did great that day. Just two. And in a week, guess what you'll have? In 2 weeks, in a month, guess what you'll have, right? And so when we get in those spaces where we internalize what other people are saying, I can scroll, I can read all the beautiful things I've done, I can read all the amazing people I've seen, and what that can do in the moment is very powerful for helping to build our self-esteem, helping to build our self-confidence. If we maybe don't have the means or ability to go to therapy, if we don't have the means or safe spaces to talk about it, right? That can be something that we do on our own to build that, so that hopefully we can build our confidence to repel some of these things that are coming in. Ask yourself, what am I good at? And who am I? And who do I want to be? Right. And put that into a note that you have access to pretty frequently. I think that is a way that we can start again thinking about things within our control that we can do to help build our racial identity, to help build why Black people are beautiful, why we are beautiful. right? Say a mantra to yourself in the morning before you go into that class with that bully. Do that mantra. I rebuke it.
Hmm. So affirmation, right?
Affirmations, absolutely.
Okay, so Princess said, I have more white people embrace with love than my own race at times. I learned from taking psychology in college that people act on what they know and to observe to learn that individual. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's why I said it, right? Is because a lot of the things that we talked about in the beginning, a lot of what I felt
Hmm.
was from my own people. And
Hmm.
so we can't say don't trust white people when we do it too.
Yeah.
And like Princess said, sometimes I did feel safer and more authentic in these white spaces. And I felt like I was ashamed for saying that when
Hmm.
it wasn't me creating that. It wasn't me saying that I feel comfortable here and not comfortable there. There's a reason I don't feel comfortable over here. That doesn't have to do with me. And that's a really brave and good point that I think you just said there, that sometimes they do, and sometimes they create a less judgmental space than our own Black people, which is
Hmm.
crazy,
Yeah.
crazy, right? Which is why I'm putting so much of it back on us of what can we do to build ourselves to not continue to let these people who are not from authentic backgrounds, who do not want to let us be, stop letting them win.
Hmm. No, all good stuff. I'm taking notes, so I'm a note taker.
Mhm.
But all good stuff. Yeah. Definitely we have got to change that narrative. We've got to, because
Mhm.
it's hurting us and hurting our children.
Mhm.
It's
It
hurting our
is,
children.
right? And I think that's why one of the reasons, of course, that may be contributing to these increases in mental health concerns, these increases in suicide that we are exponentially seeing in Black people. I think about when I joined grad school, I think about conversations I've had with my family, and we were all shocked when we learned how many Black people die by suicide because, at least in our family, it's a white thing. It's a thing that we don't talk about. It's a thing that doesn't
Mhm.
happen to us, and that's just not true.
Right.
And it's like I think this is part of why we're seeing these increases is just the lack of knowledge and conversation.
Hmm. Yeah. No, we definitely have to keep these conversations going and heighten the awareness and make sure people know that there are resources out there and there's help to be received, whether that's the crisis text line or the National Suicide Prevention line. In our area
Mhm.
here in Tallahassee, we have 211, which is a clearinghouse of resources that are available, just based on whatever your issue is. They'll definitely direct you or give you a list of who's providing whatever service it is that you need, but specifically mental health. And then we also have mobile response units within our law enforcement that specifically try to address mental health issues and not try to criminalize folks that may be going through a crisis or having a mental illness or mental health episode at the time. So, those are some ways that I think, some of our local governments and municipalities are trying to mitigate some of what we are experiencing now, and I guess really understanding more of that, sometimes a lot more times than we probably often recognize is somebody going through a mental crisis of some sort. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm.
Princess said, my family was ashamed when my mother committed suicide
Mm.
at 23 years old. Yeah. Wow, Princess. I'm sorry that
Mm.
was your experience.
Yeah.
I think that's another thing is that oftentimes when there is a death by suicide, that there is even a stigma associated with that, right? And as she's saying, a shame, guilt. Um, sometimes people have a feeling of helplessness, hopelessness in terms of regret and wishing that they could have done something or prevented this from happening. And so
Mhm.
I've heard people who have had loved ones that have died by suicide express that, and the silence being deafening, um, because they
Mhm.
just don't talk about it.
Yeah. No, and echoing that, I'm very sorry for your loss as well, and just that that's your story as well, Prin. But that highlights so much that exactly that and so often it's a shame or a reflection on us, even though this is not us. This is what happened to your daughter, to your sister. This isn't about you. Right? This isn't something to be ashamed or to, because shame means that I messed up, that I didn't do enough, right? And so we can't accept blame for this. And I know again that's easier said than done, because it's always going to be a question of what could we have done? What did we miss? How did we mess up? How did we raise? How did right? And especially when it's younger kids that are doing this, it's like it's our fault. And it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. Right. And it's our job to try and again. That's why it's so important to do those spaces and those check-ins and to show that there is a way out,
Hmm.
right? And also I want to encourage everyone on this call, committed suicide means that we did a crime. We didn't commit a crime. Your mom did not commit, right? We committing suicide means that committed a crime. That person felt so alone that they died by suicide, right? And just that difference can have a lot of power as well, because committing insinuates a crime,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Indeed. No, thank you for sharing that. Princess Furthers has expressed that everyone looks at her as if she's her mother because she looks just like her. And she said, I know those demons and I refuse to let my life go. So I fight hard. Good for you, Princess. Good for you. Continue fighting. We need
Mm-hmm.
you. We need
Mm-hmm.
you. We need you.
Yeah.
And your children need you too, Princess. So
Mm-hmm.
keep fighting. Keep fighting. Keep fighting. We're glad you are here. Glad you are here.
Mm-hmm.
So, wow, this has been good. This has been good. Again, just at the beginning, just the tip of the iceberg, but something to think about. Lots of food for thought. I want to encourage us to, again, as has already been stated, form those alliances, those healing circles. Um, talk about mental health. Do check-ins with your strong friends, and do the gratitude journals that
Mm-hmm.
Jasmine mentioned, and then those positive affirmations as well. Those will also
Yeah.
assist. Yeah.
And I know we're getting close to the end, so I just really want to emphasize that again, despite everything we've talked about, right? Remember that black is beautiful. Let
Yes.
that be the first thing we write on this mantra and this gratitude journal, right? Is that we
Hmm.
are beautiful, and we might go through these struggles both within our community, outside of our community, due to the color of our skin. But that's what makes it even more important to come together and acknowledge the beauty in it, because it's not just what we see on the media. It's not what those individuals who again may not be as open-minded and our allies, right? It's not what they're saying. It's not. And let's remember all the beauty that comes from the family and community and spirituality and all these things that we bring to the table too. And when the fact that quite literally we built all these countries, our ancestors built everything that y'all are sitting in, walking on, right? Let's remember that, because they
Yeah.
can't
Say that
take that from
again.
us.
Say
They
that.
can't take that from us.
Say that again.
Okay, we and our ancestors. I won't even take it away from our ancestors. Our ancestors built this country, and arguably 90% of these countries. Okay, we did that. Nobody can take that. Nobody. Y'all want to abuse it? Y'all want to tell us that we don't matter? You would have nothing without us, because y'all couldn't do it. We could.
All right. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Say it loud. I'm black and I'm proud.
Okay. Yes.
Yes. Ozzy said, awesome conversation tonight. Be proud and confutable in your skin. Let no one break down your self and confidence, esteem. Love it, love it, love it. All right, Junie is Eric Junie said 99%. Okay, I don't know. Tell me what that is, Junie. Give it expound upon that. I don't know what that means. All right, Princess is giving us the praise hands. That's what I call them. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So again, this has been a great conversation. I have thoroughly enjoyed this, and let's keep this conversation going. We got to keep this conversation going, right?
Absolutely. And thank you so much for being willing, everyone here tonight, to engage in this and to be present and to offer such amazing insights and suggestions. I think this is why it's so important. And I love to hear all these takeaways that everybody's having too, right? Because that's what it's about.
It is. It is. Now, how can folks connect with you?
hmm
I know Twitter, I think maybe your spot, kind of.
Yeah, yeah. So I have a website. It's
Okay. Yeah.
jasminbrooks.com, spelled like I believe you all can see how my name's spelled here. So Jasmin. There is no E on Jasmine. So jasmine.brook or jasminbrooks.com, sorry. And on there, you will find a contact me box. You can just type a message there. It'll go to my email. You can also connect with me on Twitter. Thank you for posting the link there. So
Absolutely.
that's the easiest way. And then again, as well, if anyone has Twitter, at Jasmin Brooks. And then I know you're going to be sharing this on Facebook as well. But those are the platforms. That's the easiest. Or LinkedIn is my name as well.
For sure. For sure. For sure.
Mhm.
Well, do you have anything coming up that, we need to be made aware of or that we can support you in?
No, everything's going well. I am finishing up my dissertation right now this year, and I'll be applying to clinical internship, which is like our residency year. So I'm focusing on those things for a little bit right now. But like I said, if any of you all want to check out the podcast that my sister and I created, it's called We Had the Talk. We're
Mhm.
hoping to bring back for a season 2 on mental health coming up soon, and you
Right.
can find again more about that podcast on my website as well. But
Wonderful.
would love for you all to tune in and listen to those episodes on being Black in America, because like I said, very similar conversations to what we've had here tonight.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Dr. Asha
Mhm.
said, come on, dissertation. We got you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
For sure, for sure, for sure. Well, thank you all. Thank you, Jasmine. Wishing you all the best. Like Dr. Asha said, we will definitely be lifting you up as
Thank
it relates
you.
to your studies, and look forward to hearing more from you in the future. I just got a feeling you're gonna be doing some great and wonderful things that we can
Thank you.
benefit from and tap into. So excited for you. I really am.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right, good people. For those of you who have not subscribed to the Conversations with Nicole YouTube channel, invite you to do so. Also, add Greater Works Network to your Roku TV player or stick. And we will see you on Wednesday. Y'all have a good rest of the evening. Bye.
Bye.